We're pleased you're here today for Governance of Digital Twins in Human Biology and Health. I'm Natalie Meyers, co-chair of the Artificial Intelligence and Data Visitation Working Group, and we're going to present today on some of our work related to in silico trials and digital twins. I'd like first for us to acknowledge the country we're in and celebrate and acknowledge the first Australians on whose traditional lands we meet, as we pay respect to their elders past, present, and emerging. I'd like to welcome any new members to the Research Data Alliance. Individual membership is free. I encourage you to join. You can see a link in the top right corner of the slide. If you're not yet a member, please join, and once you're signed in after joining, you can go to working groups, and if you order alphabetically, one of the first ones you see will be the Artificial Intelligence and Data Visitation Working Group. If you click the Join Plus button on that page, on the members pull down, you'll be able to join our group, receive our communications, and if any of that is a pain, you can talk to anyone at the RDA booth or myself after the talk. We'd love to have you in the AIDV, receiving our communications and participating in our conversations. So let's talk about the European Open Science Cloud Future project, the Research Data Alliance AIDV Working Group, and I'll familiarize you with some of our core outputs and their relevance to digital twins research. The goals of the AIDV were to produce 4 outputs, one on ethics committees and IRBs, recommendations for those groups on how to respond to projects that had an AI or machine learning component that posed a risk that might otherwise be difficult for the members of that IRB or ethics committee to grapple with. What we've noticed worldwide are backlogs in IRB approvals because of their members' inability to grapple with and understand some of the AI projects coming before them, either because of their black box nature or because of the way that our IRB boards are populated from disciplines that may or may not represent computing science. Second of our outputs was guidance for informed consent in the context of artificial intelligence and data visitation. We will see in some of the conversation you hear coming up related to in silico trials and digital twins, how important secondary consent can be, and how important it can be for machines to be able to read consent information. We also have an output on secure processing environments for open science. It's a proposal of legal foundations for such enterprises, platforms, and the organizations that run them to both protect them legally, but to allow them to legally achieve the optimal data sharing that those platforms can represent as we move away from what we might think of as file-based sharing into a universe where we're more frequently bringing algorithms to the data rather than bringing data sets down to our desktops and pushing them back up. We also have an AI Bill of Rights recommendation. Within this recommendation is specific session or section on in silico trials and digital twins. So let's do a quick overview of the AI Bill of Rights recommendation. Our goal was to produce an AI Bill of Rights communique for the EOSC-Future project and the Research Data Alliance that promotes fundamental human rights and advances trust in AI and federated systems for open science. My team included Ayuchi Exebo, Shiny Martis, myself, Rona Piranan, and Yiyang Su. Shiny's work will be paramount in what you see in the coming slides about in silico trials. One of the things that is included in our AI Bill of Rights recommendation are recommendations on the essential elements for responsible artificial intelligence. These include the necessity for having AI and acceptable use policies within your organization, where you formalize the definition of AI in your community, document key roles and responsibilities, and outline the acceptable and unacceptable uses of AI for your community. This becomes very important within the context of medical organizations, medical research, patient privacy, and patient consent. We also recommend the creation of an AI working group or oversight committee. You'd want to form an oversight committee whose function it is to oversee your AI systems, allocate resources to those efforts, develop and maintain AI governance policies and procedures for your community. You may need to accompany this with AI training and education for members of your organization and offer learning opportunities on an introduction to AI and ethical considerations for AI, as well as training on developments of AI strategy, AI governance, and risk management. You'll see a lot of different AI policy recommendations, both disciplinary, regional, national, municipal. Many of them, especially those related to industry, will take a risk or safety-based position first. And it's important for us in research to read between the lines there and make sure we center developer, deployer, and patient rights inside those conversations, inside those protected classes. We also recommend that you have a plan for artificial intelligence impact assessment. We're going to talk about that more in a second. Have a scheme for how you're going to do your ongoing monitoring, how you'll do transparency notices and disclosures, what you'll do if you're using vendor systems and how you need to assess their AI features, and you'll need to have a plan for how you test your AI systems for bias. So what is AI impact assessment, or AIIA? It's a way for you to determine what your AI system impact assessment process will be, keeping in mind your strategies for assessing the AI system, its impact on individuals and groups of individuals, ways that you can assess the societal impacts of the AI systems you run, and a way for you to schedule, both within the monitoring and logs your systems produce and within your organizations, the way that you will do those impact assessments and what their oversight intervals will be. So you might think, well, that sounds like a lot of word salad. How do I really do that? Thankfully, there's a flow chart. It's not mine, but I really recommend that you visit it. I'm going to leave this slide up on the screen for a moment. You'll notice on the right-hand side of the left-hand side of the diagram that we don't create AI policies in a vacuum. We can have existing patient privacy policies, existing data safety and protection policies within our organizations that our AI policy needs to complement rather than conflict with or rather than replace. So how do we do AI alignment? We need to consider auditable detection for bias, auditable detection for privacy violations, and have a control and escalation process to assign responsibility for investigation when we receive or discover within our own organization indicators that investigation is warranted. How are we going to notify impacted parties or individuals? And how will we go about doing reconciliation or restitution to impacted individuals and groups when we need to mitigate or correct consequences of non-aligned AI? So how does this fit in with in silico clinical trials and digital twins? In silico medicine holds a promise in overcoming socioeconomic and technological barriers to medical innovation and improving patient safety. The work that I present to you here is primarily authored by Shiny Martis, who was a member of our working group. She's Senior Regulatory Specialist at Voice and Consulting Life Sciences in France, co-chair of the Pharma Task Force for the Avicenna Alliance, and was a co-lead on the AI Bill of Rights. Shiny's work tells us about the enabling factors of digital twins and in silico clinical trials, and how this technology has the capacity to streamline regulatory approval, minimize environmental footprint, and ultimately enhance patient outcomes. In silico approaches, especially digital twins approaches, have demonstrated ability to accurately predict changes in individuals' health using clinical endpoints. And these models and digital twin systems can be constructed using different approaches, depending on available technologies, data quality, and knowledge. You'll find that knowledge-driven models rely on scientific understanding of the human body's biophysics, biochemistry, and physiology, while data-driven models are developed directly from the data without making causal assumptions, often using AI methods. Let's think about the limitations of these approaches. While the AI methods offer significant power and continue to advance, it's important to exercise caution and avoid exaggerated promises that could harm this emerging field in use of AI and digital twins in clinical trials. Both knowledge-driven and data-driven models have their strengths and limitations, and the choice of approach depends on the specific question, context, and available data and knowledge. Combining different in silico technologies is often necessary to address complex healthcare scenarios. Here's some of the recognized challenges. We often find that the application of in silico methods in regulatory processes, post-market surveillance, and investigation of adverse events is still limited, that there's a lack of well-defined process for a widespread adoption of in silico results in regulatory contexts. And we articulate this in the AI Bill of Rights along a series of dimensions. One of those is cost, related to real-time cost, computational cost, and how data-driven models can have a high computational cost during construction, but low costs during execution, whereas knowledge-driven models might have moderate construction costs, but potentially higher execution costs. We also have a data requirement dimension. Here, we note that predictive models need observational data for development and additional data for validation and testing, that patient-specific data is often necessary for personalized predictions and development of digital twins, and that different modeling technologies have varying data requirements. The availability and access to reliable data to do this work can pose significant challenges in healthcare, and the costs associated with data acquisition and the impact of privacy restrictions such as GDPR can add to the complexity of the data requirement dimension. Another dimension is the credibility assessment dimension. Guidance documents and standards can provide procedures for assessing credibility of knowledge-driven models. The credibility goals can be achieved through verification, validation, and applicability analysis. The focus here is not on a fit-for-purpose approach. The focus is on a fit-for-purpose approach, acknowledging that models may not be perfect, but can still serve a specific use given certain quality criteria. For closed data-driven models, credibility assessment can be similar to that of knowledge-driven models, but self-learning models may pose challenges as new data can change the entire model, requiring reevaluation and revalidation. Finally, the explainability dimension. Here, the explainability of AI becomes an important aspect as requested by the EU GDPR. Modern AI algorithms like deep learning may lack inherent explainability, but efforts are being made to develop additional methods to address this issue. You'll hear about this more in the next talk. And knowledge-driven models, on the other hand, can be inherently explainable. Some AI models have obtained FDA permission for clinical use. We offer in AIDV guidance for ethics committees that I told you about. It includes a survey and a summary, guidance for informed consent, secure processing, legal foundations recommendations, And all this leads us to a shifting paradigm from data transfer to data visitation and research into opportunities for things like digital twins in clinical trials. Now we're going to turn it over to our online colleague. I'm going to wait a minute while our friends in the back bring that talk up, and we'll hold questions until we've had this next talk.
I don't know if you can hear me.
Good morning, we can hear you. Thank you for joining us online. We really appreciate it. We know it's awkward timing.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to present the work. I couldn't have asked for a better introduction. However, I will probably be a little bit more dull in the sense that the talk will address more fundamental issues before even touching AI. So I would like to take this opportunity to present the Building Immune Digital Twins working group. The group historically came together while we were collaborating during the pandemic. It is, I would say, a very interesting mixture from people all over the world, but two specific, I would say, projects that were that emerged during the pandemic gave birth to the Immune Digital Twins discussions and also the group. So one of the groups was the COVID-19 disease maps community, a community of more than 300 scientists from all over the world that came together to build a map about all the molecular pathways that were impacted after the SARS-CoV-2 infection. And on the other side of the world, in the US, the viral pandemics group were also trying to understand and to model the viral infection and the pandemics. So while we were all working online, there was this cross-fertilization between the groups, and we started to discuss how we could better work together. So we quickly understood that whatever we knew about the human immune system was really fragmented. And while we had many tools and many methodologies and platforms and all the methods that we have been working on mapping data and modeling them, they were actually insufficient. And it took us a rather long time to make things interoperable and standardized in order to put all our strengths together to answer the big question: how to be prepared for this attack, for this threat. And honestly, we were able to make our tools talk, but once we did, it took us more than 3 years, and the pandemic was not a very hot topic at the moment. However, we realized that this was not a question for one lab or even for one country. And we understood that to complete the assignment and to really be ready, we had to continue to work together and bring other people to the party. So in 2022, we published a roadmap, what we would like to see and how digital twins of the human immune system would be possible in the next 5 to 10 years. So everyone understood that we needed to develop sufficiently powerful and detailed simulation models of the human immune system, acquire appropriate real-world data to train and validate the simulation models, and then personalize them, contextualize them, and customize them to individual patients and for particular purposes. The ideal immune digital twin would be a bioinformatics ecosystem that was more than a model, and of course a model that would span more than one biological scales. So we wanted to have information in the molecular level, cellular level, tisular, organ, and also full body manifestations, and also being able to integrate and analyze this data and model them ideally in real time, that this is not very easy for some human pathologies, and this system would be easy to implement in the clinics in order to help with diagnosis, prognosis, and therapy optimization. In 2023, so 1 year after the roadmap was published, we came together in Paris, 100 people from 20 countries for 3 weeks. So we did this marathon of a workshop for immune digital twins. The idea was to minimize communication barriers and also meet people with whom we have been working and collaborating for more than 3 or 4 years during the pandemics. We also wanted to start shaping a common language between immunologists, clinicians, engineers, biologists, mathematicians, informaticians, and everyone who would be useful in order to bring immune digital twins to life. So we met in the premises of Paris at Paris-Saclay, and the Institute Pascal hosted us for 3 weeks. And gave us the whole building, a new building that was at the time 3 years old. So we had the whole space, and what we needed to do was to actually talk to each other. So we spent 3 weeks trying to see how we could communicate and how we could start having subgroups and tasks and dedicated objectives. So we had a mix of keynotes, advanced talks, tutorials, and we had people from the clinics, people from all over Europe, but also the US. And we also had people from regulation and policy, bioclusters and industry like Sanofi or Genoskin, Okin, Nova Discovery, Kitware, Evotech, and Evoplexus Medics, because we really wanted to see how we could move forward and together. So the goal was to continue to work together. We wanted to enhance communication between these communities, mostly 3 communities: clinicians, experimentalists, and theorists, and create a transatlantic community. So during the 3rd week of this workshop, we started to write our application for the RDA Tiger services, which was actually successful. And at the end of these 3 weeks, we started to discuss how to organize our working group under the umbrella of the Research Data Alliance. So RDA Tiger has been a real catalyst for the group, and I don't think we would have been so productive and successful in some aspects if we didn't have the support of RDA and especially the facilitators from the Tiger. So some statistics. So we are now more than 20 countries, participants from more than 20 countries. I think we are around 82 registered members, but in reality we are a little bit more. And we are endorsed, and it's now almost a year since the working group was endorsed and fully operational. So our chairs, I am the lead chair, but of course there is a group of people that have been working all this time. So I lead this group together with Reinhard Laubenbacher from the University of Florida, Lisbeth Gerris from the University of Liège, Dr. Gary Young from the University of Vermont, Sir Peter Hander from New Zealand, Christine Reich from the Institute of Fraunhofer in Leipzig, Dr. James Glazier from Indiana Bloomington, Dr. Noriko Hiroi from the University of Kanagawa in Japan, Dr. Mohit Kumar Joly from the Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore, India, and of course Athena, our facilitator, who makes sure that we hit our milestones and we stick to the timeline. We also have a very active group of task managers and active members of the group who make sure that we progress in many aspects of the group. So what we would like to do and what we are trying to to actively do is to develop community standards for data formats, metadata and model sharing, ensure interoperability across different platforms, tools and datasets, advance global collaboration through open science practices, and designing a long-term roadmap for sustainable immune digital twins ecosystems. So in a more, I would say, mundane tasks, we had 18 months to deliver some literature, repositories, a catalog for models and metadata, and also a textbook recommendation document. Our members come from many systems biology and systems immunology communities, and I would like, for example, to mention EDIT and the human virtual twin, but also the disease maps community, the IMAG, the viral pandemics, systems biology, graphical notation, and systems biology markup languages, the Colomoto, the Consortium for Logical Models and Tools, but also biomodels, Reactome, and wiki pathways. So we are a community that is very active in the field, and we have I would say, a very good overview about things, and we collaborate directly with Combine for the development of standards, and also the Center of Reproducible Biomedical Modeling in the US. So in parallel, we are also implementing FAIR principles as we go on the fly, and we align with recommendations from other communities, but also RDA groups, to ensure coherence, reusability, impact, and also to be a living adoption case for fairness. We have Slack channels, working files, monthly meetings, group activities, grant writings, and we very often organize workshops. We are open, so people keep joining. And in addition, we also have received some funding, the RDA Cascading Grant and the RDA Experts Call Grant, in order to facilitate the organization of the outputs and the deployment of a prototype digital portal for our activities. We have also been really active in communicating what we're doing with the broader scientific community. So we have published the roadmap in 2022, and also Immune Digital Twins for Complex Human Pathologies, Applications, Limitations, and Challenges. And our recent publication is a collaborative publication about the actual working group and an open invitation to the scientific community to join us. Our members also publish their respective research that is focusing on digital twins or virtual twins for immuno-oncology or autoimmune disease. So regarding the outputs of this the working group, this is an ongoing work. We are still in progress. We still have 6 months, more or less, to finalize. So we have been working on curation guidelines for the Immune Digital Twins literature collection, how to curate literature, but also how to curate and annotate models. We are working with respective communities in order to maximize the adoption, but also be coherent and respectful to the work that has already been done from these communities and is accessible publicly. We have also been working on real cases. So we have a repository that has now 131 models. We have models and metadata for this, and they are all related to human immune system responses. We collaborate with biomodels, and we coordinate efforts to help also biomodels annotate and curate the models that have not been curated yet due to an absence of manpower. We are also working around data and model governance in framework and regulatory aspects and ethical considerations. And we are also organizing the best practices recommendation document in the form of a book with different chapters around the human immune system, the standards and the ontologies, the modeling approaches for different scales, software and platforms that are now interoperable and that they can scale, and implementation and adoption of the guidelines and the recommendations. Regarding the RDA, besides the facilitation and the RDA TIGE services, as I mentioned, we also benefit from the experts call on the cascading grant in order to design our digital portal and to put a working prototype, to deploy a working prototype. As you can see, we have been really active in the design, and we are now in the process of finalizing the front end and building what is needed for the simulation part in the back end. Going forward, we would like to not create another model repository, but really work with existing infrastructures and see how our work can be beneficial either for biomodels or other infrastructures. What we want to do is to have guidelines and some use cases of implementation of model-ready data and data-ready models, so that models and data can talk to each other and they can be combined and integrated quite easily and be accessible for the people who would like to use them and see them as building blocks for more detailed and scaled immune digital twins. We want to have a recommendation document that can be updated as we go. We want to address unmet needs, because at the end of the day, the recipient is the patient. So we would like to see how we could accelerate things and have experts joining us in this journey to tackle many different questions that we don't have any, I would say, formal training about. The ethical aspect, so we all are advocates of open science. We are all working to democratize the access to digital twin technology. But what will happen if this accessibility is really easy, if these models are very easy to contextualize, even for people that are not technologically savvy? Who has the responsibility for that? What happens if these models are wrong or they are not well parameterized? So these are questions that we would need to discuss before putting all these models out there. We also need to develop consensus models. The idea is not to reinvent the wheel every time that a pandemic is knocking at our door. The idea is really to progress in a modularized way so that we can combine and we can keep building on what exists for now. And we would like to have a digital platform that can be sustainable, usable, and accessible from a different number of stakeholders, and even for patients and the broader audience. And last but not least, we would like to have a prototype in 5 to 10 years. I would say 10, maybe it's too long, 5, it's too early. We don't really know with the fast-paced advancement of AI algorithms. So we have conceptual designs, and we know a little bit of what this IDT might look like in the future, and we have a next marathon of a workshop already under organization in 2027. This time it will be for 2 weeks and not 3, and you will all be cordially invited to join us again in Paris at the Institut Pascal to discuss about digital twins, regulation, policy, and implementation. And for that, I would like to warmly thank you for the opportunity to present the workshop, the working group, and I would be happy to receive questions and participate to the discussion. Thank you very much.
No, it's Francis. Thank you very much for this really lovely presentation and for doing it between, I believe, 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning in France. So much appreciated here. I want to begin with a few words of thanks, because I think that's really important now. And then I also want to say something about the session, and then we'll go to the questions themselves. So in the very first place, I want to thank Anna for doing this, for making this possible. Anna agreed that we could do a joint session together with the Artificial Intelligence and Data Visitation Working Group, and that was for us a big deal because, as Natalie showed you, we did a lot of work like with ethics and human rights and regulatory things and so forth in the background. But what was important for us was to get that work transferred into reality and really embedded in the science and even in the digital practice now, which I think Anna will see happens with the platform that she's building. I especially need to thank Natalie. Natalie is the driving force behind the AIDV. She is the one who makes it work. And she's also the one who made this session work today, as well as our earlier session here. So I want to thank Natalie for that. But we have a great team. Shiny was fantastic as well for you. And she's also been fantastic in the immune digital twins as well. So I want to thank them. I need to thank Ryan, because Ryan is our motivator and our guide as the Tiger facilitator with the AIDV working group. And I also need to thank Athena. I think Anna would thank Athena even more than me. I think they've become almost best friends, because Anna and Athena really are the ones who make this thing work in the working sense of working. They do a lot of work too. As you saw, Anna has a fantastic team, like a really distinguished team, and this is high-level, serious science, cutting-edge science. It's a privilege to watch that take place. She has a fantastic group of co-chairs who are really good and really know what they're doing. But it is Anna who drives this thing with enormous energy and enormous work, and even gets up at 2 in the morning to join us here. I thought that we had to do this session because it would not be really appropriate not to have the immune digital twins present here, and the discussion that Anna just brought to us present here in Brisbane as part of the International Data Week and Plenary 25. So thank Anna for that there too. Good. That being said, I hope I haven't destroyed too much here. Maybe we can go now and try to have a discussion about digital twins, about the science part of it, maybe something about the regulatory ethics aspect about it as well, because what Natalie presented. But what do you think? Do you think is important? What kinds of questions, what kinds of thoughts would you bring to Anna or to Natalie? What could we discuss here? So we have Joy here with the microphone over there, and we also have Wilson over here. Thank you, Joy and Wilson, for making this work. Let's try to think what's important here. Please, we have one young lady in the background there, please.
Thank you so much for your talk. Ilan Meyers from Australian Research Data Commons. I work in the People RDC, so Health and Medical Research. If I can piece together the two talks and discussion of knowledge-based models versus data-driven models, I'm just wondering about the higher logic of, and I understand there are real practicalities here, in separating out digital twins by biological systems versus using observational health data as the spine. And I'm just wondering about, are we missing out on an opportunity presented by Gen AI and deep learning to derive insights between systems that we couldn't possibly come up with ourselves from knowledge-based systems? So in the immune system has deep interactions with the nervous system. There are interactions in the human body that we still don't understand, but by essentially putting as much data into those models as possible and having the computational power to derive interactions, my feeling is that the sky is the limit. So I'm just wondering about sort of the framework for digital twins, and if anyone wants to take that question.
Yeah, I think both Natalie and Anna will speak to this. But I first want to thank you for the question. I think it's really insightful, firstly, and I also thank you for stitching the two presentations together so nicely as well, too. I see Anna is really ready to say something here, and I think she has something good to say. So Anna, please.
Thank you very much for the question. If I had more time, I would have added a couple of slides about the different vocabularies and the different definitions that we give to digital twins, virtual twins, digital shadows, and all these concepts that we have borrowed from the industry. So a digital twin is a concept, is really a virtual avatar. You can think about it as a plane simulator, as a flight simulator. So the plane is flying, and they have this sensors, and there is a model on the ground that can take in real time this data, analyze them, and make predictions about the flight. The problem is that with humans, having sensors 24/7 is not something very easy to achieve, and also here comes also the data and the consent and who is gathering all this data and what type of data. So you can bring a digital twin to life with longitudinal data or with epidemiological data or whatever data you would like to use, even clinical data. But the main, for me, the main subject is the question, what would you like your digital twin to predict? At this point, we cannot predict everything. We cannot really bridge all the scales. This is what we are trying to do. So we are trying to bridge the molecular scale. We need it because all the treatments act in the molecular scale. They have their targets, for example, JAK inhibitors, they want to see JAK. So you need to have all this signaling and gene regulation. But then the clinician is not really looking at the molecular level. They are looking at the physiology and some measures that are very simple. So you're trying to really bridge this chaos with whatever you can. Data, up to now, we are discussing big data, but in reality, data are spread and not very deep. So we have enough data, but not so much in order to train the algorithms with a certain level of confidence. And then, of course, there is the rare part, rare diseases for which data are not available. And you cannot use AI on these questions because you just don't have enough. So it's not mechanistic or knowledge-based or data-driven model. It's everything in a way. So I would say a digital twin would need to reconcile and bridge these things, and it needs to come with explainability. So when we would like to implement these tools to the clinic as a decision-making system, as a help for the clinician needs to understand where this response comes from. Things that they do not understand, they cannot trust, and they cannot use. So what we have at this point is a lot of black boxes and not so much reasoning. Maybe we will get there, but we are not there yet. So AI and LLMs, for example, and generative AI come also with a lot of hallucinations, with a lot of noise, and with a lot of things that are not correct. The problem is not inferring interactions that we don't know. The problem is validating these interactions so that we know that they exist and they are not just noise. I don't know if I have answered your question. At least I tried.
It was a beautiful answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Maybe Natalie will speak to that as well.
Yes.
Yeah, the thing I would add to that is a compliment for, I think you used the phrase, data is the spine.
Yes.
I love that because it's really appropriate And it helps us think about fitness for use when we assemble a data set to run a model. My experience is more on the side of testing for anti-malarials, insecticides, things like this, and their impact on human and animal populations, and on the parasites that we seek to control. In those contexts, one of the things you're trying to do is save time, and we might think that Plasmodium falciparum is living in a mosquito, its propensity, it's being manufactured in us as humans. When we think about how we can use a digital twin to speed a product to market, when products begin to lose their efficacy because of drug resistance or insecticidal resistance, or when subspecies present a problem because they begin to emerge in areas we didn't expect because of climate change, digital twins can become really useful because it's hard to access some of the places we need to in order to take data observationally about something like an insect population. So we can use digital twins to speed research. We can use digital twins to look at species that are underrepresented in certain areas and emerging in others. Digital twins can allow us to fill statistical gaps that allow us to do modeling on data sets that wouldn't otherwise be complete enough. And this is our argument for them that begins before the ethical question, but is inherently present in the data question. Do we have enough data? Is it the right data? If we don't have enough data, why not? Can we simulate that data? What are the consequences of simulating that data? What other data do we have that we can triangulate from to simulate that data, and so on and so forth? Can we use AI to do that? The short answer is yes, and you're seeing it emerge in more and more clinical trial applications. The long answer is not appropriate in all human and animal systems research, and not appropriate in some models that are too black box, unexplainable, or have alignment issues. We talked a little bit about alignment before, and I think really with model-driven research in a clinical trial setting, that companion question of, do we have enough data, the right data, and is our model explainable enough, help us bring projects to regulators for approval. Can we run this project? Is it okay to use a digital twin to get started? And I love your question for that reason, because our bodies are a mystery, but our battles are for imperiled people and places who are impatient to have healthy environments for children, for livestock, and more. So I'm an impatient optimist, but also someone who doesn't want to see the wrong data used to solve a question just to get a product approved, if that makes sense. And I hope you'll ask some follow-on questions, because I think you're getting at something important when you talk about the complexity of systems and what models can we use on complex systems. Francis, do you have anything to add, or anyone from the group?
No, but I do like the discussion, and if you want to stay with the discussion, it's okay. Anna, do you want to respond to that first or not? We do have a couple questions here.
I wanted to ask.
Yeah, please go ahead, yes. Please introduce yourself, Professor.
I think this concept
Professor, sorry, just maybe introduce yourself first to Anna.
Oh yeah, I'm
please.
Narendra Mehra, and I'm the chair of the Indian National Science Academy Committee on Core Data. I'm an immunologist actually. I have been doing immunology for the last 4 decades, and I'm very fascinated with your concept of the immune digital twins. And I was just thinking in my mind how to introduce this model in our current problem that we are facing is the immunotherapy of cancer. Immunotherapy is right on the rise, and we are struggling to bring it to the patient care. We are very close to it, but yet very far. And I wanted to understand both for immunotherapy of cancer as well as for inflammatory diseases, and I saw that you're going to do some kind of a workshop in 2027. I would actually urge you to also participate in the international congresses of immunology. We just had one 2 months ago in Vienna, and we do this every 3 years. The next one, of course, will be in Canada there. I think this concept of digital twinning, the data sharing and making it as a digital platform for problems of the kind that I've said will be of great help.
Thank you so much, Professor Gill. Anna, do you want to come in now? Yeah.
Yes, so thank you very much. I think one of the problems is that scientists are very reluctant to leave their comfort zone. So immunologists have a tendency to go to immunology conferences, which is great. Computer scientists go to computer science conferences, and there are a few of us who really try to go to these conferences and talk. I think in the early years we were kind of the extraterrestrial people landing in other people's niche conferences and talking to them about modeling. I think if one thing is positive for AI is that it kind of familiarized people with the concept of using computers or modeling for understanding biological questions. So now things are a little bit better, but still it's not very easy. And I have to say that immunologists and clinicians are the hardest to convince, and for a very good reason. But we really need you, because I would say these years we have been working on technology, scaling, algorithms, uncertainty quantification, confidence, scoring, and all of these things. But now we really need to understand the assignment. I mean, do something that works for you. So when I started modeling things, I started with rheumatoid arthritis. My first model, I was very proud of it. And when I saw it, I showed it to the dermatologist. He told me, but what can this thing do for me? And honestly, it couldn't do much, okay? It could do a lot in the molecular level, but nothing for a clinician. So then I understood that if I wanted my modeling to reach the clinic, I needed to work with the clinicians. I needed to understand the questions. I needed to understand the parameters, all of these things that a clinician would like to see in a model, and then try to see how I could implement this. One of the problems that we have with the human immune system, and you know it much better than I do, is that we don't really know how it works. We know some parts, we suspect some others, but it's very difficult. We don't have a manual of how things work. So what we are trying to do now is to create portfolios, digital portfolios of cells, T cells, B cells, dendritic cells. Use all of these data, single cell RNA-seq data, to really understand how these cells work, what are the biomarkers, what are the surface markers, how can we better characterize them, and then try to make a digital equivalent of this cell, and then put them all together and see what happens. The problem is that multidisciplinarity is praised, but is very hard to fund. And this is one of the bottlenecks I see, and hopefully this will change. I'm optimistic. the funding of really multidisciplinary projects where immunologists, clinicians, and computer scientists and mathematicians work together, they're very few. And whenever this had happened, the outcome was really successful. We can see that with the Human Cell Atlas. We can see that with the sequencing. When experimentalists and clinicians understand that the computational part is there to help and really accelerate things, and when we work together, the collective intelligence is synergistic. It goes beyond the sum. I think this is where the magic comes, and I'm hopeful that in the next decade we will witness many of these small miracles.
Thank you, Anna. Anna, we have another question here from Professor Mark Nysens from Brussels.
I would like to say that I don't see you, so it's very kind that you introduce yourselves, because I only see Natalie and Francis.
Okay.
Yes, Mark Nysens, Brussels Free University, Medical Informatics. Thank you very much for the speech and for the concepts also. I had one question I would like to elucidate something. You spoke about the repository of models that you manage. Are these the codes to operate the models? Are they the concepts of the models? What is in this repository of models that you manage?
Yes. So this repository is like an exercise, and we don't really want to build a repo, but we want to work with the repositories that already exist. So we have 139 models that we have curated from biomodels, so from another repository, with the purpose of helping biomodels put the right tags and keywords and classify them in the proper way that people can access them in their mother repository, in the big repository. So these models, what do we have from these models? We have the code, we have the executable files, we have the metadata, and for the models that were not curated in the original repository, we curate them, and we also create tools and codes so that the curation and annotation of the metadata is harmonized, standardized, interoperable, and automatic. So who made it? What is the associated publication? What is the immune part? Is it a B cell? Is it a T cell? Is it human? Is it another species? And also all this with controlled vocabularies and standard ontologies. So we use a cell ontology, we use immune ontology, we also use mesh terms. We are trying to do things as standardized as possible so that they are accessible and reusable. It's not public yet. We have 6 months to, I would say, work a little bit more until we put this as an output of our RDA working group. So in 6 months, it should be accessible by everyone, and hopefully these 131 models will serve as our next exercise. So we are collaborating with Import. Import is a portal that is developed and maintained in the US. Now it's the University of San Francisco. It is also backed from the Federation of the Immunological Societies, and they are sharing openly curated immunological datasets. Omics, but also low throughput, like immunoassays, ELISA, all these things. And what we would like to do is to see their datasets and see the immune-related models, and have some use cases where we can showcase how these data can contextualize these models and how you can simulate them in an easy, accessible platform. So at the end, this is what our portal will do. Will help you identify datasets, will help you identify models, we will give you tools to make them interoperable, to talk to each other, and a simple platform where you can do your first simulations and download everything as we are working in open science space.
Anna, I don't see other questions, but I'm just thinking, for all of us here in the room. Oh, my apologies. Yeah, please, thank you. We have one.
Thank you. Kia ora. My name is Resha, and I'm from Otago University, Head of Digital Strategy and Partnering. So, very interesting conversation. Specifically that we have one of our strategic digital transformation goal is to build digital twin for the institution and digital twin for the campus. So I was thinking about what of the key insights from the journey, the experience, the framework you have applied, if we will apply the same concept on a different context. So digital twin on an organization or institution level. Thank you.
Anna, please.
So, if I would speak as a mathematician or as a more theoretical scientist, I would say that as long as we can define the system, we can model it. So the tools and the approaches and the concepts are very close, but we would need to see the particular aspects and characteristics of what you would like to model. So in the immune system, it's cells and the body and organs and some very tangible outputs. In an organization, I could say that you would need to modularize your organization. Maybe the body would be the university, and the departments would be the different organs. And then within the departments, you will have also people who work there, and they will be probably the cells. Or you would have also the students, maybe they would be the signaling molecules. So the analogies, you would just need to make the analogies and see how these concepts fit. And I would also consider that the digital twin for an organization will be on the macro scale. So you don't really need to go probably into too much detail, but if you want, you should be able to implement that also. So for me, a digital twin of the body or a digital twin of the university, they have many similarities, but the secret is in the analogies and then in the tools, because you would need to have a lot more power if you would like to simulate the whole thing. So yeah, that is my first thought on the subject. Natalie, I don't know.
Yeah, I would add to this that I think you'll find some good analogous use cases in construction and engineering, because the use of digital twins for modeling materials and built-work safety is fairly advanced. So you'll find a lot of examples for buildings resistant to earthquake, resistance to fire, bridges, bridge failure. The state of the art for digital twins and built works is fairly advanced, and a fun way to imagine, perhaps not the organization of your university, but its campus and the campus built works and infrastructure and their resilience to environmental or weather disaster, for example.
And smart cities also.
Right.
Yes, and for that work, Ronit Puranan from the AIDV would be a good contact. Yeah. Her background is in smart cities, and she's a wonderful person to talk to about this.
Anna, I think we have one more question in the audience. Is that correct? Yes, please.
Okay.
Oh, two more questions. Okay.
Sure.
Please introduce yourself to us.
Good morning, colleagues. Yes. I believe it's 3 a.m., so good morning is still applicable to you, Anna. So, my name is Kagiso Mabe. I'm an academic and a deputy head at the University of Johannesburg, South Africa. Yeah, lovely being here. So mine is not necessarily a question, just more a comment as part of the discussion, just to support Anna's point on the multidisciplinary aspect of, of data. I'm not from a medical field, but being here, because what brings us together is the data aspect of it, why it's important for us to continue these multidisciplinary settings is because what we then do is we are able to then learn best practices from other fields, which might then be blind spots for our fields. For instance, I think 6 or 7 years ago, what we did was, and there's a PRISMA protocol that's being used in the, for reporting in the medical field. So now we've taken that, and now we tested it in our field. And since, I tell you, it's been 6 years, and we've only been using that ever since. So these platforms are super important, and that multidisciplinary nature allows us to then expand our innovation capabilities outside of the norms and what we are comfortable with. So just to support your point, yeah, and to re-emphasize the importance of that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I truly appreciate that. I think we are many like-minded people, but it has not been very easy to find ourselves, I would say. And this is why RDA and also the data visitation is very important. I think that Francis is, for us, is the secret. Francis really links us to the world, I might say. And I'm really grateful that he decided to join the group and also open the door for us to other groups and also for this session. I mean, if it was not for Francis' persistence, this lovely conversation and session would not have happened. So I'm really grateful for that, and I'm very happy to hear this type of comments.
Thank you, Anna. Anna, just to follow up on that, in the next International Data Week will be held in South Africa. So you'll have a chance, if you can make it then, down to beautiful Cape Town to meet with your colleagues here and really do some interdisciplinary discussion here. And all of this is really thanks to RDA and CoData here. We have another comment as well, another question or so. Please introduce yourself. Thank you.
Yeah, hello everyone. I am Lily, and I am just like a normal data practitioner, like working in data for like all my life. Doesn't have like a medical background or anything, but just imagining the situation as I am a patient with like a rare disease. And how do you get consent from the patient or the close family for using the data as a simulator? And how do you communicate that to the patient that's no like a certain outcome of that simulator, and then that the result of it could be used and applied for other patients in the future? Just curious about that.
This is a really good question and was tackled and some solutions presented in yesterday's discussion of data visitation and our testing in the Tiger project data visitation for RDA, where we have worked with Lifetime Omics on their Fairleys product. And in that attempt to bring RDA recommendations into product features, a few of the outputs you can find on the slide deck from yesterday's DV for RDA presentation and on the outputs of the DV for RDA project in our Research Data Alliance are suggestions for language on informed consent for data visitation and modeling projects, suggestions for language for reconsent for data visitation, clinical trials, simulations. Reconsenting patients or subjects is terrifically expensive. So if we can create language that is more in tune with today's ways that we do experiments and the way we use computing to model outcomes, we'll have better ways to get continuous or reconsent from patients where they can be continually updated about the results of the models their data is being used in. And you'll see 3 guidance documents with sample language in the presentation from yesterday. And I'm happy to talk to you also in the break and point you to those. It's really helpful information created by that DV for RDA group within AIDV, and I think will make this kind of thing that you question more of a reality in coming years, and also make the job of the ethics committees and IRBs we mentioned earlier much easier, because they'll no longer be asked to approve projects and leave them lie the way they were approved in such a way that IRB needs to be approached again for a reconsent run, if you will. So it's a terrific question because it gets to the heart of the expense of reconsent, the time involved in reconsent, and why today's modeling solutions really require different consent language from the get-go, both with funders and with projects putting themselves forward to IRB. Would anyone here like to add anything to that? Perhaps you've had experience on such an IRB or putting forward such language.
Dr. Lee,
also on the country.
Please, Anna, please.
It also depends on the country and what type of documents they give the patients to sign. So when the data come to us, they are anonymized or pseudo-anonymized, and we use them as patient 1, patient 2, patient 3. At this point, I'm not aware of any digital twin implemented in the clinics. We are all in the, I would say, in the trial and error phase, in the assessment phase, and it really depends, because if it is an algorithm, for example, and this is why Lisbeth Gevis should have been here. It is also a discussion if the algorithm should go through the approval of a medical device. So these are questions that we have not answered yet. Not, I would say, in a lab or in a hospital level, but in a European or in a country level or in a global level. And also, when we are personalizing these avatars, these are purely in the research part. They are not implemented in the clinic until now, but of course they will be. And maybe some of them are, but not in a fully, I would say, implemented way or used to make decisions. And I don't think that patients today understand when they sign what exactly they sign about the data and who has access to them and what will happen to the data or to their digital avatars. And for example, if a patient dies, what happens to the digital avatar? Who gets permission to use it? Who does this avatar belong to? These are, I would say, questions that we have not taken the time to discuss, also from a moral aspect. And also the last question, for which I don't have answer, I have probably more questions, is does it belong to the patient? When we are using the data of the patient to create this digital avatar and we use it for our projects, is the patient also entitled to ask permission to use it or have access to it? What is the link between this patient and the personalized, the personified avatar that we created using their data? I don't think that the audience, the broader audience, truly understands AI, data, omics, digital things. And I think that it is in our responsibility to make this public outreach, to create seminars with simpler language, to really try to to make people understand what is this digital space, what it incorporates, and how we would like also their views in shaping the regulation, I would say, and the path forward. This is a space where the patient should have, and the patient advocacy groups should have also a say after a basic, I would say, education and training on the subject.
Anna,
Yeah, if I might add to that, the notion of the quantified self, or the ways that we can use sensors and our clinical indicators as input to models is really important in continuum of care. In my organization from which I'm recently retired, the University of Notre Dame in the United States, our Lucy Family Institute runs an approved AI mitigation through an approved software application for the ongoing monitoring and treatment and communication for pediatric cancer patients in Mexico City, especially those at risk for neutropenia events. And what we have found is that through the use of AI in the digital app and the sensors we can use and the readings we can use, we're able to allow young patients to return home with their families rather than staying in the city at the hospital just because they might have a neutropenia event, when it's much more affordable for their families who can't afford to be visitors in the city while their children is in a hospital. Also much safer for their children to return home where there are 3 meals a day instead of the hospital waking. Everyone's been in the hospital and been woken up a million times. It's also a very unpleasant place to be as a child. What we've found with administering this small project is that it did require a lot of rounds of getting the consent right so that patients and their families, pediatric patients and their guardians or parents at the hospital, knew how to use the app and knew how to use the app to monitor their child but also get help from their attending physician. And we also needed to instruct clinicians on the benefits and work with them to develop the app so that it would have the features that were necessary to create that comfort level that you asked about in the previous question, and to address some of the ethical issues that Anna just raised. So in this case, the whole child is not quantified. There's no avatar of the child. There's no digital twin of the child. But there is an AI, and there is consent and ongoing ability for the patient or the family to opt out of the app. But geez, then they're stuck in the hospital for months. So it's better to be home with the app and the consent. Mm-hmm. And it's better to let the AI help you communicate with your doctor and monitor your symptoms. So sometimes we make trade-offs just to help our kids sleep in their own beds.
Thank you. Just 1 second here, but Anna, recently you were working on a document, a proposal, and you wrote Avatar, and I crossed it out and tracked changes. I don't know if you kept it or not, I don't remember. Usually she doesn't take anything I do, but anyway. So, but that's not true, I know. But now I understand better why you're using the term Avatar, so I appreciate that. I wanted to say something. You know, the GDPR, or that beautiful piece of legislation every European knows and loves, the word ownership doesn't exist in that. In the whole of the document, the word ownership isn't there. We have a data subject. We don't have ownership. The discussion actually is around sovereignty. Who is sovereign with regard to the data? But there's something very strange. Anna, if you're walking down the street and I take a picture of you, that picture belongs to me, and you have no claim on that picture. And I can publish that picture, I can do whatever I want, I can copyright that picture, anything like that. So it's very strange when it comes to data, which is, to me, a description, that the claim then goes to the subject rather than to the author, which is a strange thing here too. One other thing I wanted to say, I'll just throw it out here because it came up before, and it came up also in our data visitation discussion was, and this is going to become more and more a problem. You can go from perfectly anonymized data, like perfectly anonymized data. You can analyze that data, and you can arrive at personal data. And you could do that not just with biological data, I think. You could do that with descriptions of geographical data. And you could still arrive at personal data from what was originally considered perfectly anonymized data or non-personal data. So it's coming into a more and more complex area. Professor, introduce yourself one more time, please. Yes.
Another, your immunologist friend is...
Sorry, Professor, you have to just introduce yourself one more time because she doesn't see the audience. You need to say your name and where you're from.
Yeah, so I was going to say that.
Yes.
I'm the immunologist friend, Narendra Mehra, who has all my life worked on immunology. You made two statements. One, you said that immunologists are very hard to convince. That is true. You know, we actually deal with the hardcore data, the data that has been generated in the laboratory, and that data is going to be finally used on the patient. And the second point that you made was the patient has a right to know. Of course, they have the right to know. I cannot inject anything to the individual unless I explain to them and all that. And that is based on a hardcore data there. I think one of the issues that we have not discussed very well is the regulatory issue. When we are dealing with the IDT or the terminology that you use, the digital twins, it's very difficult for us to get the clearance from the regulatory agencies. You know, they would need a hardcore data that has been lab generated and has been validated a number of times. Nothing can be injected into the human being unless it has been proven. You know that a vaccine normally takes about at least 10 to 12 years to come to the market, except the COVID-19. COVID vaccine, of course, came in a matter of 10 months. But otherwise it takes, because you go through this animal stage, you go to the stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 trials and all that. All those trials are done. So I'm not getting convinced so far on how the IDT idea will be utilized in medicine and maybe biology as well. Unless we address the issue of regulatory issues to a large extent.
So of course, these things would need to be regulated and also validated to a large extent, but things change. For example, in France, for the dermocosmetics, testing in animals is not allowed. Some years ago, this would have, seemed like unrealistic, but it changed, and everyone went for it. In the US, the in silico proof is now proof enough to get a clearance for the FDA. Not from any algorithm, of course, and the models would need to really perform and have robust data that they do what they say that they're doing. But it is already coming. It's not a discussion. And in the pharma industry, now they're also doing in silico trials. So they are having these digital patients that they're using. So they have this branch, and they are now comparing it to an in vivo trial to see if the virtual patients actually behave the same. So synthetic data predictions in silico world is already here, and they are making, I would say, their ways to the clinic. The problem is that because this technology advances really fast and we were not prepared, these are discussions that we need to do. These are collaborations and projects that we need to forge, because the pace will outpace us. And I think that it is good in a way, because it makes us discuss again. And as scientists, we didn't have a lot of time to think, discuss, and come together. So now we do it, but we need to be efficient and open. And I think this comes with some hardships, because for many years we didn't really know how to talk to each other and how to shape this common language and this common understanding. But algorithms and digital avatars, they will come to the clinic as cell-based assays, human cell-based assays, or organoids that are also being developed. They will replace some of the more traditional ways that we had to test toxicology, for example. Now for the skin, they are using reconstructed skin or organoids or different layers, and also digital avatars of these skins, in silico skins, to measure the toxicity of several compounds. So there are also some in vitro tests that toxic effects in animals, in some years, maybe they will really, really be limited. So yes and no, in a way. What I would like to say is that I don't think that we should replace everything with algorithms and models, no. But because they're coming, we would need to have these discussions and say in which situations we would need a hard no, and in which situations we would need to be faster in order to, keep up with the technological advancement. It's like in the university. At first, everyone was saying, don't use AI, but the students are already using it. We say no, but all the students are using it. So it's ridiculous to say no, don't use it. We need to tell them how to use it in the best possible way so that it is for their benefit and not to their detriment. And I think this is the bet that we have with digital twins and algorithms and computational models in the health space also. How to best use them to our benefit and to the patient's benefit.
Anna, I just want to come back to I agree with your response completely. I think it's actually a beautiful response. And you also say what I want to say as well, I think. Our technologies are outpacing our regulatory environments. And this is we don't have to say it's dangerous, but we can say it's a very uncomfortable place. Because all of us, and it's a fundamental requirement in society and ethics or so, but all of us need to carry out our activities in society within rules. So one example is phase 0 studies, the microdosing studies. Those studies to me seem enormously promising, and they are demonstrated very well. However, there's a lack of a regulatory environment for that, except for the MHRA, really, in the UK that was proactive on that, but we don't see that with the FDA or the EMA or other regulatory environments, and so we don't see pharmaceuticals being developed using these phase 0 studies because they're not sure if their data will be accepted. And I think it's going to become even more complicated. When we get to digital twins, when we get to models and things like that, yeah, we saw that FDA regulated software as a medical device. It's going to complicate things because devices and pharmaceuticals now become almost you can't separate them very much anymore because they're used together. But the other thing is, if we look, especially now with regard to your modeling and the developing digital twins, that means we're going to have to exchange data, right? And we probably know now, we're probably aware now that we're not going to share data. We're going to bring code to data rather than share the data. However, our entire regulatory environment around the world is all the way we regulate data is we regulate the movement of data. There's no regulation of code to data. So even though we think we can do it, we think we can do it in safe environments and so forth, we don't have a regulatory structure to do it in, or a legal structure to do it in. And I think this is an inhibition. And just one more thing is, the Chinese government, the State Committee came up with like a vision of AI in the next 10 years or 15 years. It's an amazing document, absolutely amazing. It's brilliant, brilliant document. And in that document, they actually discuss, or at least they hint at, using AI to develop regulatory legal infrastructures. You know, if we see how long it takes in Europe to get a directive or a regulation passed, right, or how long it takes the EMA to make a decision about giving a new guideline, I think we're in a brave new world with this. So just throw that out here. We have one more question from our colleague from South Africa. Please introduce yourself one more time for Anna.
Kagiso again from South Africa. Just sorry to take you back, just on the data ownership point that you made. Now, so I come from a business perspective, right? So the claim for data subjects is they deserve a share because we are making money from their data, which is a fair claim. It makes sense, right? So what one big company did was, so in the competitive intelligence aspect, if an employee, so every employee to build into the culture of using data for decision making, every employee has an app for the company. And if whatever insight you or data you produce or you give them is part of influences any strategic decision, you then get an incentive. So now that's a norm for that organization. And then with technologies like blockchain now coming into the medical field, I imagine that at some point, whoever's data is being used, it will be able to be tracked at some point. So once I can track it and I realize that, I mean, for public hospitals, of course, in the medical field, you are saving lives. That's the intention. But private hospitals are also kind of making money. And serious money. So if I'm a patient and I realize that this pharmaceutical company, for example, has made 100 billion off of something they learned from me, I could lay a claim to say, okay, let me get whatever percentage. So the idea now that I think could work is we sort of we implement royalties of some sort. If your data is being used, even if it's a 0.1% of a share, depending on the sample. If however amount of data is being used, depending on that sample, you then get a share somehow. I don't know, it's just a thought.
Thank you. I want to leave that hanging in the room because I'm seeing on my screen morning tea is now, and I know Anna. I'm actually worried that Anna will not go to sleep because she doesn't do anything but work, but I hope you go to sleep. Anna, I want to close out with something related to that question. Also, the question was already asked by our colleague from the University of Ortega here, but I want to come back to it. Very often when you're writing, Anna, and you're making an argument why somebody should fund or invest in digital twins, you come back to the aerospace industry and you say, look, we can demonstrate that digital twins work in the aerospace industry. It's using it and they're working, and we also know in other fields they're working. I just wanted to ask you one more time, is there a difference using digital twins in the human biological space from using digital twins in, let's say, economic spaces or industry spaces or engineering spaces? Do you think there's a difference between that we should be considering?
This is a very tricky question because I need to stay very scientific and not get my personal biases in the way. Why I'm saying this? I want to answer the previous question. Do you know the history of the HeLa cells, the Henrietta Lacks cells? This is the first cell line, the first immortalized cell line. We wouldn't be here today in terms of advancement in biology without this cell line that was obtained without consent. And it's used and reused and reused and reused. So is there something different between digital twins of objects and digital twins of people? I would say yes. And it has to do with the moral aspect of it. I think that there is this respect of the person that we should not forget about. It's not an object, it's a person. A very dear friend of mine said something wonderful. He said for the bioinformaticians and the modelers, the patient is always virtual. We never get to see the patient. We just have patient 1, X, 0, and data. But for the clinician who is standing before the patient is real, is a real person. So I would say that the moral aspect of this is very important, and we should discuss it. Why do we have the right to use sensible data to advance science or whatever if the person does not consent to it? Do we have the right to our own data? Do we have the right? Do we have the sovereignty of our decisions? If we do so, then this should follow us to this aspect also. So for me, the data, especially the data that come from patients, are not neutral. They should come with proper consent. Because if we start saying that this is for the benefit of society or I don't know what, I think this is a very dangerous path. And we have seen before how data can be used for purposes that are completely immoral. So for me, consent, education, information, accessibility is very important, and it should be respected. So my answer would be yes, there is a difference when we're discussing about data that come from people. This is my personal, I would say, view, and of course I am open to more discussions and challenges and debates on the subject.
Well, I cannot think of a better way to interject a hiatus into our discussion now than with this really beautiful response from you. Also your presentation, Anna, thank you very much. Natalie, thank you enormously for the presentation and for making everything work here. Really, thank you so much. Thank you to Ryan. Thank you to the whole RDA team. I want to thank very much the audiovisual people here, as well as the volunteers that have been doing a lot for us throughout the meetings. These are really professional people. These are really, it's made things work very well. Anna, please get some rest tonight. And thank you so much for being with us. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the questions, and have a nice conference.